again, one of the unique pieces of experience that you bring to this conversation today would be a reflection on what are some of the challenges that you have faced in your years of priesthood. That when Jesus invites people to follow him, especially I think in a life of ordained ministry, he's not calling us to something glamorous or comfortable. You know, it's not an accident that he invites his disciples to pick up the cross and to follow him that way, and that when a man is ordained, one of the most powerful moments of the ordination liturgy is when he's laying on the floor face down with his arms out in that sign of the cross, saying, this is going to be the pattern of my life, participating not just in all of the joys of Jesus' ministry, but also in that self-giving and self-emptying as well. And so, based on your experience, what have been some of those ways that you've had to share in the sufferings of Christ and the challenges of priesthood in your parishes and ministry?
Well, I heard a priest presenter talk about the spirituality of diocesan priests, and he compared it to the spirituality of our lay people, especially married couples, and insofar as in their lives when they're raising their children, there are constant interruptions. And so I would say one of the challenges I've experienced in my ministry is the after hours phone calls, interruptions.
Very often in the last 16 years, you know, I'd see, you know, happy couples with their kids and their families, and every now and then I go, you know, I want one of those. And every time somebody would come up and say, you know, I thank you for the sacrifices that you've made, and I keep asking myself, what exactly do they mean? Well, you gave up having to, you know, have a family and a spouse and so on, and I kept thinking to myself, well, not knowing what that's like, it's not really realistic in the sense that I don't know what it is that the sacrifice cost.
There's a lot of work, and I find that I find it very challenging, and I'm certainly need to keep the balance of prayer and rest as part of my life as well. There's a lot of work. The volume, it's incessant, it never stops. People get sick on their schedule, not mine, and die the same way. And families have crises, kids and all that. It's just part of life. But honestly, nothing is perfect. And you couldn't be in business, a career, or military, or wherever else you think you would be, and think that that's a cakewalk, because it's not. It's hard on everybody. Relationships are difficult, you know, everywhere. So I try to do the same thing. I try to make sure I have a balance of prayer, work. Charlie Kelly, the same late lamented Monsignor Kelly, used to say, you get 24 hours a day. 8 for Jesus, 8 for you, and 8 to sleep. And the 8 for you is you pray, you know, when you recreate, you play tennis and so forth. So, I mean, I used to say, good luck, Charlie. I mean, if you can get that holy balance of 8, 8, and 8, good. But it's a good goal to strive for, to realize that God doesn't demand 24 hours of me. I don't have that much energy, and never did anyway at any age. So God wants to give to me, and gives to me in the work of ministry as well as in the work of prayer and recreation.
The portrayal of priests in the media when you were growing up, or some of those great movies about priests, and Bing Crosby and the Bells of St. Mary's, and The Cardinal, and those other great movies in which priesthood was held up publicly. But if you've read the newspaper or watched television for the last 10 years, priesthood has not been held up in that same way. So what's sustained you through this time where priesthood has had to deal with scandal, and one that has hurt many people, and how have you and your parish worked through that together?
I find myself, you know, apologizing for other people's sins, you could say. There's only so much apologizing you can do for somebody else's sins, and building on that with, you know, with integrity and with dedication and work that you do, so that people relate to you personally and know the wholeness of your person and your work, you know, that's all we have really. You know, I don't think we can undo, certainly cannot gloss over, you know, the last 10 years and the hurt that it has caused, but we can build from there, and knowing that we are on their side as opposed to, you know, defending this institution from, you know, from attacks as though the institution was more important, you know. As not only members but also shepherds within the church, you know, it becomes our responsibility to first look after those we are sent to serve, and experience their pain and experience their suffering, and, you know, assist as much as we can, because many of us are wounded as well, and because of that and because of other experiences of struggle in our own lives, and you know, we're carrying the cross together. We're not alone in this.
I found that the people in the parishes really do love their priest. And I know I would have to say the same to be with you guys. I mean, I've been around your parishes and your parishioners. You know, they want the best for us. Our parishioners do. You know, they really do. They care for us. They care for who we are. They hurt when things come out in the paper. You know, they'll say, "Father, man, I was really sorry to hear about that priest down in Nebraska or the priest over there. Did you read about the one down in South Carolina?" You know, they care about us. They say things like, you know, "I know this is going to bother you. You know, are you doing okay?" And I think it gets down to the heart of it. The people really do love their priest. And no matter what goes on in faraway places or close by, as long as they see that you care for them and that you really are authentically just trying to be the priest that God's asked you to be, they're going to support you. And they're going to be there for you, and they're going to encourage you in your ministry, because ultimately they want the church to do well. They want to see their church do well. And that's my experience. I'm not sure if y'all can relate to that in your parishes or...
Yeah, well, sins were committed, crimes were perpetrated. We were all wounded. I was the walking wounded with everybody else. Vulnerable people were abused, and you know, and I mean, it really was. It was hard on everybody, including all of us. We were all in that together. At the same time, there is a vast reservoir of goodwill.
You know, if I were to say something to, you know, somebody who's discerning going into the seminary, I would say, if your fear is that the world is going to say, "You're an evil priest," that's not going to happen. You know, "Oh, you're one of those people." It's the opposite. People are going to say, "Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for discerning this. Thank you for, despite everything else out there, for trying to become, you know, to listen to the Lord, to try to be a priest." I think that's really what I experienced, because I lived the scandal in the seminary. You know, you guys were all ordained, but I lived it in the seminary, and so I lived it through you guys, the priests. I went with it through you that summer. And I saw the people just really saying, you know, "Thank you for saying yes. We want you to be holy. You know, keep up the good work."